Yeah, I would rate my performance a 5 out of 10. I could sit here all day and make excuses. I could have zigged when I should have zagged. I could have, it was a timing thing.
All right, so as you guys are going to be aware of now, I'm going to be doing a little color commentating over my video I recorded earlier today. I had a very good time basically recording this video. I'm going to be covering some little points here. So yeah, stay tuned because it's going to tie into your everyday life, the things we observe, and I'm going to be talking about, let's say the MMA world, the WWE world, and it's a big act. It's a big game on what we're doing every day here. Stay tuned. So we're going to talk about a little topic here that I actually, I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of fun talking about. And that's basically like ego trips or basically when trash talking goes wrong. And I actually enjoy this topic. And the reason why is because I grew up watching wrestling. You know what I'm saying? WWE. And growing up, I always questioned that this shit was real or if it wasn't real and whatnot. But there's going to be a couple of things I'm going to tie in here, such as like everyday life, things you can observe in your everyday life, including even YouTube, UFC, and of course WWE and characters, gimmicks, and stuff like that. But I actually enjoyed, and to this day probably still do it. I've always been very competitive, played a lot of sports like handball, hockey. I did MMA growing up and whatnot, but I've always enjoyed the trash talking aspect of things. But literally all in good fun. You know what I'm saying? It was never in a way where I was maliciously trying to really hurt someone's feelings. It was more or less trying to get them off their game. And I really enjoyed the aspect of the art of mental warfare, like getting into somebody's head and just throwing them off. But however, all these things come at a cost. You see, the whole thing is that we'll use examples like this because there's no one way to look at it. I always grew up horse playing with my friends, like, play fighting and, just being chaotic, just nuts. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we used to jump on each other, give each other Charlie horses, even nutcrackers, like nut shots and shit. These things were just foolish things that we did. But one of the big rules that I always went by, and actually we all went by, is that if you're the type that can't joke around, then don't participate in it or don't dish it out. Because whenever you dish out some shit, you're inviting somebody to play that game with you. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people who like to dish out shit, but they can't take it in return. And you can see this even with certain, even fighters in the UFC, for example. I know that some people in my channel don't watch UFC, but it'll tie into like some of the shit that I'm talking about here. But, there's a guy who's an upcoming fighter. His name is Ian Garry. And he's very brutal, dishing out shit to people. But when it comes to him in return, you can see how he would basically crumble under that pressure. And the pressure that's basically presented to him would be the pressure of the media, the audience, for example. And of course, when you talk this kind of shit, you got to back up your words. So now you got a level of expectation. You get what I'm saying? So it gets to a point now where you're going in there and you've leaked out most of this energy in the efforts of trying to get into the person's head rather than putting those efforts and energy or that fuel, that fire for the actual performance. You know what I'm saying? There's a fine little balance, but it can get to a point where even going so low, you actually end up now using that weapon against you. And I'm going to explain this. So for example, he's doing this. He's an up and coming star. There's a few paths to becoming a star. You could just be really, really good at your craft. Like a mixed martial artist like Khabib Nurmagomedov, where he's undefeated. And he was not really known until he faced, where he had to face the big names of the company. And now this is where he was absolutely known, but he's never been known to be a trash talker. But there's people who want to take this route, become a trash talker, but it's not really in them. They're not really about that. So this guy, Ian Garry, is trying to do it like, for example, like a Conor McGregor. And I know he is because even after he wins, he does that, the $1 million walk that Conor McGregor got from, Vince McMahon in the WWE. It's funny how these things all kind of cross paths with each other, right? I'm going to start to make sense with everything I'm saying now, so bear with me here. So it's not in him to do that, right? He may have had the craftiness to dish it out, but he can't take it in return. You see, pressure creates diamonds. But if you can't handle that pressure, this is why people say you crumble under pressure. So a guy like Conor McGregor, you'll notice that everything that gets thrown to him, he doesn't give a fuck what they say about him. In fact, he has the wits and the quick firepower to basically fire back and basically dismantle his opponent because he's good with his words, right? But he's also the type, aside from being good with his words, he knows how to handle that kind of pressure. The pressure that comes with the media, the opponent, the fighters, the crowd in general. You know what I'm saying? All the criticism, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? He knows how to conduct himself. He knows how to carry himself well with that. So there's times now, for example, where if you're gonna trash talk, you could go another 1 or 2 routes with this one too. You can go and trash talk to the point where you're both. It's not even like, it's not fake. It's very real. That whole buildup. You know, let's say, for example, you got 2 fighters. The UFC is very good at matchmaking because they know that styles make fights. Physically, styles make fights, right? So the type of styles that they can actually merge together to create a good fight would get some serious interest from the crowd and actually, you know, entertain the crowd and keep them, you know, cheering, keep them engaged. But the trash talking too, that's another style. You know what I'm saying? The build up to the fight is just as important as the actual fight to get the spectators to watch the fight. It's part of the promotion. So you've got, you know, the whole build up where the styles of the individuals, if both of them are known to be trash talkers, it's going to be a great press conference. But then there's some that you may have a good trash talker and another one's not that good of a trash talker. You know what I'm saying? But they're dependent on the style of that fighter to make a good fight regardless. You know, like I'll give you an example. Conor McGregor trash talked a guy like Jose Aldo, right? He's not known to be a trash talker, but he was the champion at that point. He was on like a 12-fight win streak. He seemed unstoppable, right? And the thing is, Conor McGregor used a strategy, which is the art of mental warfare, got in his head so badly that he could not perform. You get what I'm saying? And a lot would criticize that this is not what mixed martial arts is about. You know, it's all about honor and respecting your opponent and whatnot. And I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. But also the art of mixed martial arts, if you ever heard, like even in movies, they'll tell you this, like the Karate Kid and whatnot, or whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying? This art is meant for self-defense. It's meant to defend your honor, defend the honor of your family. It's meant to be used to defend yourself. It's not meant to go attack or for power and control, right? But don't forget though, a balanced mixed martial artist is not just about the physical performance of the craft, but also being able to maintain balance when you have adversity in the form of mental warfare. Okay, because everything's mental. So it's basically the mind is all, the universe is mental here. So I'll give you this little example here. Jose Aldo is a true mixed martial artist, but crumbled under that pressure. But when you got a guy like Khabib, right? Khabib did not crumble under the pressure. Yet Conor McGregor used the same strategy on Khabib that he did with Jose Aldo, right? And the thing is now here's where the strategy went wrong for Conor McGregor. Okay, there's certain people that you use that, because trash talking is a fucking strategy. It's a weapon. It's a tool. You know what I'm saying? It's just that. And before I go any further with that, I actually want to throw this in here real quick. You know, when you fight, there's techniques, right? To throwing kicks, to when you're even grappling, or when you throw a punch, right? It's like you could throw straight punches, or you could throw looping, winging punches. One will exert more energy than the other. It's how you fight and the type of strategies you use in that octagon. It's the same thing with trash talking. I mean, you can feel this. It's like when you do marketing. I mean, you read body language. You could read the opponent to some extent. The same way you read them in the octagon, you're reading them as you're trash talking. If you notice you're getting in their head, right? They're giving their power to you. This is how you gain energy. But if you notice that you're doing too much or you have to cross boundaries or get even further, don't forget this person's still an aspect or a mirror of you. You know what I'm saying? And there's where it goes wrong with certain people trash talking or getting in a way where they're trying to get real personal. You're actually gonna end up hurting yourself. It's like force instead of just technique. You understand? You're trying too hard, but if you're not about, which I'm gonna get into this video, if you're not about that, it's gonna backfire on you because that's not really you. And when shit gets real and you're not real, that's when you can't match that energy. That's when you get fucked up. You don't want to use that on everybody, okay? Because it might turn against you. So the example I want to give is the Colby Covington trash talk he did with Leon Edwards. See, a lot of people said he went low, he shouldn't have went there. Everything's allowed. You could do whatever the fuck you want as long as you're really about that shit. You get what I'm saying? The whole thing is that Colby Covington, during the press conference, he was in total control of that press conference, had everything under control. I mean, he was master trash talking. Leon Edwards is not good at trash talking. He's not known for that. And he's an excellent fighter, though. He's probably a better fighter than Colby. Colby is a person who trash talks, but he's backed up his words throughout his entire career. In fact, he was going to get cut from the UFC. Unfortunately, the industry we're in now, he had to take the route of trash talking and take risks and get the crowd against him by the stupidity, he might say, but just to save his career. And that's exactly what he did. And he's a skilled fighter, so he ended up backing up his words. However, in this instant, he went really low with Leon Edwards. He actually said, I'm going to suffocate you. I'm going to drag you through the 7 layers of hell. And we're going to see your dad there. And that sparked a powerful reaction from Leon Edwards. So Leon Edwards' dad was a criminal to some extent, and he got murdered. I don't know what the exact story with his dad is, but this happened when Leon Edwards was still a young man, and it kind of hurt him. And these type of things, you could tell that they're wounds that are not really healed. And, he decided to go there with that individual, Colby Covington, to Leon Edwards. And you could see this reaction that it was an instant. He took the bottle and threw it at him, and he got up, and they were ready to really scrap right there during the press conference. Now, the thing here is that this is the type of energy that you woke up a monster in an individual, and this is something that you can feel from that individual. And I know Colby Covington felt it, and that scared the shit out of him. There's a big difference between somebody just, because you could, if you maintain your frame, there's no need to even react. But there's a difference between somebody that lost control and that kind of reaction, or somebody who you just basically woke up a certain energy in them. And that's the type of shit I'm talking about. Like, you could feel that shit. Like when you wake up the it's like, even you could look at that through a stimulation, even through like lighting a fire under somebody's ass. Like you could say the right things and you basically got them going, whether it be in a fight, whether it be in life, just motivation. You know what I'm saying? Like, the right words can light a fire under somebody's ass to get them on the right path. You get what I'm saying? But this was the type of fire that was lit under Leon Edwards, and it fueled him to now make a statement and prove a point. And now it backfired on Colby, because Colby now has the pressure on his ass to basically back up his words. And now he's going to have expectations. He's going to have a lot of pressure to make sure, because if not, how dumb would he look talking all that shit and then losing the fight the way he did? You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, I'll get into that here, but check this out. I know it scared the shit out of him. Even this is what the point of face-offs are. After the trash talk and whatnot, you see how you square people off, and then there's a final face-off where they do the weigh-ins and then they face off, which is 24 hours before the fight. This is very important. All right. This is part of the art of mental warfare, because your heart emits a frequency. You emit an energy that literally shoots 88 feet in front of you. So if you really sit there and look at it, you could feel somebody's energy during that stare down, during the face off. Somebody may crumble just because of that energy they felt. You may have a bigger opponent stand in front of a smaller opponent, but that smaller opponent has such big energy, such strong, powerful energy emitting from him, that you'll have that bigger person second guessing themselves. You know what I'm saying? And this is just basically how it is. Now, the strategy part, where if you went and you poked a button in an individual and you woke up a sleeping giant in them and you feel this energy coming out of them, you'll start second guessing yourself regardless of how good you think you are and how much you could take on this individual. You know what I'm saying? Now there's a strategy to inhabit real estate in your opponent's head, right? But how far you go depends on if you're really about that. Because you'll hear people say, "Oh shit got real." You know what I'm saying? When shit starts to hit the fan and shit starts to really pop off, are you really about that? Kind of like the example I gave you with the Ian Gary pressing buttons and talking shit, but when it came back to him, he couldn't handle that pressure. You get what I'm saying? So you got guys like Colby Covington who's not about that. In fact, there's scenarios that were in his subconscious mind that started to actually replay, and now he's like, "Oh fuck, I'm not gonna go through this again." He did that with Jorge Masvidal. He went real hard on the trash talk with Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal is known as a gangster type of dude. You know what I'm saying? So he went hard at the trash talking, but then ended up getting jumped in the street. And then he went on a 2-year layoff because he was going through the lawsuits and shit where, you know, he pressed charges on Jorge Masvidal because it was done in the street. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a sanctioned fight. So Jorge Masvidal took it upon himself to jump him, you know, clip him up, and then Jorge Masvidal ended up getting arrested and shit. But that kind of shit stayed in the head of Colby Covington. So now when he saw this shit got real again, he even said it through one of the press conferences. He's like, "I'm not trying to get clipped in the street again and whatnot." But that means you're not about that. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like this. I'll give you an example to put it. This is why I actually mentioned in the beginning, if you're horse playing around and you know you're the type that takes shit serious, you should not play those type of games. So you're not about that, right? So it's the same thing like with Colby Covington. You know, you can trash talk your opponent to have them second guessing themselves by the type of things you say to him about his skills, about him in general and how he carries himself. But the moment you mention something that's a real thing and it's got impacts like that create wounds in an individual, that's a real thing and shit can get real. You know what I'm saying? But if you're not the type of person who's really about it in a way where you can handle that kind of pressure or that kind of energy that's going to come back at you in the form of heat from the fighter, the fans, the media, the criticism and all that kind of shit. I mean, that's like if you're going to play the villain role, then you shouldn't be worried about what anybody says or even think about the scenario to begin with. Like you're just thinking about what you're going to do in the octagon, period. See, the good guys need, if they're going to play the good guy role, they need the crowd to be cheering them. That they have to be a fan favorite, you know? But you can't be a fan favorite and, you know, get booed because you're automatically by default not a fan favorite. Into a simple analogy. You can walk around saying you're a millionaire, you're a millionaire, you're a millionaire. But if you're really not a millionaire, because to be a millionaire, you have to have a lot of physical energy of money, right? How do you handle all that physical energy of money? And if you got faced with real life millionaire obstacles, how would you handle those obstacles? Or if you somehow lost it, right? You lost all your money. I mean, are you able to recover it back because you know how to bounce back from that adversity? Or if you got faced with certain obstacles, are you able to react to these obstacles like a millionaire, or would you still have a poverty consciousness? You know what I'm saying? That's why Jim Rohn said the most brilliant thing on the planet, and I still use it till today. If somebody hands you $1 million, best you become a millionaire or you don't get to keep the money, right? So you become that, right? I'll give you another little scenario. I've seen journalists arguing with certain fighters, like certain journalists were arguing with like Floyd Mayweather, telling him shit, criticizing him, questioning why he chooses certain fights, why he does certain things. The first thing he said is, "Hey man, have you ever put on a pair of gloves? Do you even know how to fight? Have you ever been into a fight?" And the journalist said, "No, I've never boxed and I've never been in a fight." So how you know so much about this shit then? Right? You're giving me these critiques, you know so much, you can speak really well, but you've never even been in a fight. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about then. You know what I'm saying? You don't know how it really is. You could just talk about it. It's kind of like a mechanic knowing how to fix a car really well, right? by just knowing it through book, but never actually touched a vehicle, never actually tried to fix an actual car. You get what I'm saying? Then there's a lot of people who may even come on camera and make YouTube videos and say that they know everything and they're super enlightened, way above other people, but they're not really even about that life. You get what I'm saying? And you could tell by the pressures and how they handled the adversity. Especially when you're challenging people upon invite. You never know who you're going to wake up because you got spectators watching you. You never know who you'll wake up inviting people to your doorstep, right? And upon that invite, if you get pressured, are you able to take that? Are you really about that? Because there's strategies here where you can just have quick firepower and know your shit intellectually and really know about it. But when shit gets real, then, you know, if you're not able to handle that, then I think you should just sit back and just chill out. You know what I'm saying? Start asking yourself why you're even doing what you're doing to begin with, you know? Because a lot of people you hear, they just love to hear themselves talking. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, this is why I make it a priority to let you know I'm not teaching you a goddamn thing. These are journals for me. And I literally go back and watch older videos of mine, which I literally been doing the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks I watch because certain things pop up. And the reason I trust my older videos is because I'm 100% sure that my future self, all right, is what I channeled to even make those videos back in time. It's always happening, everything in the present moment. So the funny thing is that everything I speak on, I'm very consistent with what I've said. And I look back and I say, where was I at mentally? And was I even thinking differently at one point? You know? And I'm not really, because if you're going to read books and refer books, and you're just a book smart dude. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of times, if you're going to have this knowledge and research and whatnot, learn how to integrate it and put it in a way where it's like put into practice, but then the wisdom is coming out from a space of knowing and not thinking that that's the right information. You just know it's the right information, right? But at the end of the day, let's talk about wrestling real quick. If you look at wrestling, I grew up watching wrestling, and I always ask, is wrestling real? Is wrestling real? You see, we all play these characters, right? And the whole thing is that in wrestling, people say it's fake, but wrestling is actually very real. Wrestling is super real. In fact, it's so real that you have to believe in the character yourself so much to have people believe your character is real. You have to be so good in the ring to have people believe that you're making these moves look as real as possible. You get what I'm saying? And all these things have to be a good chemistry between the two wrestlers, right? Even though it's scripted, but there's real backstage heat. Because a lot of people don't want to compromise their character to somebody else, right? So there's creative control one over the other. But at the end of the day, if somebody's too stiff, if somebody doesn't sell the other opponent's shot, selling means make it look like if somebody hits me, how real do I make it look? That's called selling the shot. If you don't sell your opponent's shot too well, you're going to have problems in the back. Nobody really is going to want to work with you. You know what I'm saying? You might get put in a role that's less appealing for your character just because you didn't decide to follow the rules. You get what I'm saying? And the whole thing is that if you go out and you don't perform correctly, the crowd may not even like you. If you're not good on the mic, the crowd may not even like you. You get what I'm saying? But we all know these things are scripted, right? Because you got a guy like Roman Reigns who was basically shoved down the throats of the people, but he couldn't. I mean, he was booed because his mic skills were very awkward. It's like he was trying too hard. You know what I'm saying? And when he became a bad guy, for example, that was more suitable for his character. You get what I'm saying? Because I felt like they were really, he was already getting booed as a good guy. So when he became a bad guy, he kind of like fit into that mode a lot more. And I could even tell he was more comfortable with being a bad guy. It's like, look at this. We'll look at the flip side. Look at Conor McGregor. When he fought Dustin Poirier at one point, he was trying to be super nice to him. That shit looked so awkward. You get what I'm saying? It looked really, really awkward. It's just not Conor McGregor. That's just not him. You know, and people didn't like it, you know? And he was just trying to be super respectful. Then all of a sudden, you know, When they fought the second time, it was like totally different. However, Conor was not approaching this energy. And in a way, look, shit happens the way it happens. I mean, his leg broke in that second fight. And there was so much pressure on him that he was not able to perform to the best that he of his ability. You know, he ended up, snapping his leg in half, throwing a kick to Dustin. But this just goes to show that strategy was off. His stability was off. As within, so without. Everything was just shaky and off. You ever notice that these fighters, when they're hungry and they're up and coming, they're more reckless, and it's like a reckless creativity. And then when they're champions, their fight get very boring because now they're fighting super cautious. Where at the end of the day, it's just being more loose and just letting go and just, trusting yourself, trusting in that process. Having that hunger is a real thing. It makes you more of a chaotic creativity. Like, look at John Jones. He used to do like these crazy spinning like back elbows and shit, where he's a lot more careful now. And only because he's risking the tarnishing a career that he built off of that, start that he had, basically creative chaos. Trying to get him to be a fan favorite, but he was just a better heel, right? So there's people who try to play a role, but it's not suiting for them and it's not fitting for them. And listen, all these things really don't matter because you're not even human. You're not these characters. You're not even these strawmen. You play this strawman character every day under the Maritime Admiralty law. So that's why I'm even bringing all these things as examples. Look at a guy like CM Punk. CM Punk was a big fan favorite, such a larger than life character in wrestling. But even he started to believe it so much. I'm the best in the world. That he brought that to a real fight game, such as the UFC. And the thing is that he's really not even about that. He's not an MMA fighter, right? He's not an MMA fighter. He brought that to UFC and he got dismantled. 2 fights in the UFC and he looked like a chump. He looked like a baby. I mean, they put the lowest ranked fighter with him and he got dismantled. What does that mean? He's not about that, right? To be an MMA fighter, you got to put the work in. You got to put the real work in. The training, the bleeding, the heartaches, all that shit, the time, energy, the patience at the same time, the passion. And you go in the octagon and you're a real MMA fighter. It's not going to happen overnight. He tried to do it in like a matter of like, I think 2 years. And that wasn't even long enough. These fighters are fighting since they're fucking kids. And here's the thing. It could happen overnight. It could. But that's a topic for another discussion. But it could literally happen overnight. It's just there's a lot of deep rooted programming, man. I mean, this can go into even like you age just because you believe in the aging process. That's just an example. Surface layer little example that we can basically leave to ponder on for, maybe another topic in another video. You go into the octagon and you're fighting people that have been doing this shit for like 20 years. Those are real fighters. You go in wrestling and say you're the best in the world and you carry that thinking you really are the best in the world? How I mean, that's what happens to you. When shit gets real, you'll be exposed. The same thing with, look at Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, I mean, he's a collegiate fucking Olympic wrestler, just like Kurt Angle. You get what I'm saying? These dudes could go into the real fight game. That's why Brock Lesnar went from WWE to the UFC and won a title in the UFC. But because he's got a background and he's just a freak of nature. He's a big-ass beast who can fight in real life. CM Punk is not a fighter, So this just goes to what I'm trying to say. Like, you put the work into the craft or whatever it is that you're trying to do, you become that. You want to be a millionaire, for example, you have to become a millionaire. But what does it take to be a millionaire? You could do it in a paradigm shift. You could be a Brock Lesnar freak of nature and go in there and juggernaut through shit. But it's are you about that? Are you really set to that? You got to fit into that energy. Because that's why I say life looks to express itself to and through you. And we're all just vessels. But not everybody should be doing the exact same thing. We're all different. Life will express to and through you at the fullest capacity if you love what you're doing and you're passionate about what you do and you believe in what you can do. And life will express itself to and through you. And even if you crumble, like for example, Colby Covington's a broken individual after that, right? And it's so funny how even after his post-fight interview, he goes, the crowd turned on him. They say he goes, fuck you all, fuck you, you're all broke. And it's so funny he says that because he's the real broken one, and he's really seen himself through everything, and that's why he decided to say that. It's like we do things and we don't even realize the shit that we say or do, but it's a mirror reflection of yourself, right? You can see this through body language analysis. People who read body language. There may be times you may be doing something. If you're telling a lie, if you're saying something, you may, start to touch yourself. You may start to self-soothe. You may start to rub your face. You may, whatever it may be, you may have certain facial expressions that somebody else could pick up on you that you're not consciously aware that you're doing. But why? Your body's like a separate entity to you. You know what I'm saying? You may be acting upon something and it's feeling uncomfortable and you're not even aware of the things the things you're doing. Sometimes you're not aware of the shit you say. Like Colby Covington going on camera saying, fuck you, you're broke. You know what I'm saying? That was basically him. That was basically him right there. That's what he saw himself, and that's exactly what just came out of. That was the very last thing he said in that post-fight interview. And I'm like, wow, that's him right there. That's what he just said. So that's why people say you believe your own hype so much, right? So like Colby Covington could put the pieces back together and come back a lot stronger though, right? Because that's what the point of life is. Life is to get up and put yourself back together and go hard again. And it makes you tougher. It makes you stronger. This is how you develop spiritual strength, is through adversity. In fact, this is why most people are even on the spiritual path, is because of all the traumas they've gone through. The people with the most traumas are mainly the ones that tend to be more on the spiritual path. It's basically due to trauma. However, if you leave trauma, let's say, you try to bounce back from adversity in a way, but you come from a religious mindset and you somehow come into like something like spirituality, which is just another idea, but you come in there with the same religious mindset, you're in the same space. You're not going anywhere. You're doing the exact same thing, just in an evolved form. Like you'll just come in here changing God's miracles to manifestations and changing God or Jesus to universe. And you may even start acting differently or expressing yourself differently or even dressing differently. Like you may be more hippie-like. You'll start expressing yourself more like a hippie, or you'll start just being like more of these love and light characters. And that's just an evolved form of your ego expressing itself in a different religious way now. Because you could be the most religious person in a fucking hoodie and baggy jeans falling to your fucking ankles. You could be a spiritual person. Everything already is spiritual. It's funny because even people are like, these spiritual little people know, like, the new agey type of shit. They go in nature and they say that they're in tune with nature. But I don't think they could even really explain what that even means. You know what I'm saying? What is in tune with nature? And I've made many videos on this. If you're in tune with nature, it's not you being in the forest. It's you being in tune with wherever the fuck you're at. It don't matter where you're at. If you're in tune with your environment, you're in tune with nature. How do you conduct yourself in that environment? If you don't know, because this is the thing though, these people start to project, pointing fingers, victim mentality. You are that environment. Like you basically attract what you are. As a man thinketh, so he is. So if you're in a space and it's not favorable for you, sit back and start to analyze, to change yourself, and you watch how everything outside of you starts to change. But pointing fingers and shit, the world is dumb, and this is just an opportunity for you to sit back and see where you're really fucking dumb. And then you'll start to see that you'll have more constructive conversations. You'll have better interactions with people. I tried this out, by the way. So think about it. There's people who can't even look at the intertwining of spirituality and the physical together in one. It's either one or the other. You're in duality or looking at shit in a dual way. So, sorry, I had a call, but you have everything spiritual. Your experience here is all spiritual. You know what I'm saying? Everything's spiritual. That's why you're a spiritual being having a spiritual experience. Even though everything appears to be materialized. It's spiritual because this entire planet is your space. Whatever you're observing and collapsing into existence is your worldview. And you're going to see the world for how you are. And if you see retards and dumbasses around you, then there's a part of you showing you that you're a dumbass and a retard to some extent. And it's time to kick back and be like, why do I see the world full of dumbasses and retards? And it'll be a humbling experience. Because if you try to come out and use knowledge, intellect, and all this shit as a weapon, that's going to come at a cost. And that cost is going to be your ego. And if you can't really handle that kind of pressure, then unfortunately you'll crumble under that pressure rather than actually under that pressure creating a diamond. There's an energy that Colby Covington felt, and it was an energy that came out of Leon Edwards. The reason that this weapon could be used against you instead of it being used for you to inhabit real estate in your opponent's mind is because now you woke up a sleeping giant within them. And that can actually be fuel for that individual to channel that into asserting himself to whooping your ass. It's kind of like this. This is why Colby looked paralyzed. He couldn't get his bearings together. Like, as much as he's normally a very high-pressured, intense fighter. And it was just so awkward to see, man. Like, it did not look like Colby Covington. It's so fucking weird. And yeah, I know styles make fights. But there was a level of intimidation there. And I could tell by the walkout, I could tell, the way he was breathing. And it's just, you could tell when somebody's just not intact. You could see that shit. I've been at one point, at times, so angry that I'm more focused on doing things at a better pace because I'm angry. You get what I'm saying? But it could be angry too where you get reckless and then you get caught in that fight. But the whole thing is that it's not even just the channeling of that individual, it's the fact that you broke yourself by trying to break that character down because that energy came out so violent and so strong that you started second guessing yourself. And rather than your mind and efforts, because you need fuel and fire and you need a certain mental state to go in and win in a fight, right? So Colby Covington now has his efforts all into the press conference. And now I'm sure that because of all that pressure, his mind was more on that press conference rather than going into the octagon to win a fight. So instead of being a fighter, he became more of an entertainer. And you could tell that this guy is all about being a character. You could tell because he comes out to the Kurt Angle music. You know what I'm saying? He talks very animated, like if he was a WWE character. There's nothing wrong with that. You get what I'm saying? But if you're really not about that, it's kind of like bringing WWE into a real life event of UFC. And now you got to back up those words. These fights aren't scripted. So now you got more pressure on yourself. And because the crowd turned on you, now you have more of an expectation to back up these words. But there is no right and wrong way of doing things. It's just know how far you want to go and if you can handle that kind of pressure. If you're not about that, you may get to a point where, know who to mess with. That's basically street smarts. You know what I'm saying? There's some people that may just want to whoop your ass, but if you get so far to the point that it goes beyond an ass whooping, now they want to take your life. And are you about that? Are you really about that? When shit gets real, if you're not real, you won't match that energy. You will be dismantled and taken apart. So, I'm going to give you an example of something I heard from Andrew Tate, where he called out Jordan Peterson, because Jordan Peterson had such a loud mouth about, the wars happening in Ukraine and, this whole Hamas shit, which I haven't really kept up with it at all. So I think it's called Hamas. But, he was basically so vocal about it, saying, give them hell. He said something along those lines. I forgot who he was siding with, but he was saying, give them hell, give them hell. And in actuality, doing so, that kind of message is mainly going to be pro death for many families and kids. You get what I'm saying? And the fact is, this individual is so vocal, yet something that Andrew Tate said was very real, where he said, you're saying all these things and promoting war and, making the problem worse, where you can potentially make it for, making more kids dying and families dying and being homeless and whatnot. If this war was brought to your doorstep, how would you react to it? Would you still have that same energy of give them hell, give them war? Or would you now be crying for peace? Would now you be, shitting your pants, praying for peace? Right? I'm sure that this is the majority of the people that are very loud and vocal about war. I'm sure they would have the same exact reaction if it came to their doorstep. That's a fact. They're not soldiers. Half these people don't even know how to shoot a fucking gun. You get what I'm saying? And they're so vocal about wars and doing all this crazy shit. Like I said, man, I've done the trash talking. I've done all that shit. I like it. It's a lot of fun. You can go into a discussion with somebody and build with that person. There's also ways to uplift others, or you could break them down. But don't forget, you're always facing yourself. You're always going to be facing yourself. And with that energy, again, everything comes full circle. That's why they say treat others how you would want to be treated yourself, or do unto others as you would want done unto you. Because eventually, at some point in time, the same way if you say you're God, life will test you to see if you're God, right? Scenarios and situations will present themselves to you to test if you're really about that. Like if you want to be a millionaire so bad, and then all of a sudden you start saying to yourself you're a millionaire, oh, well, life will present you a millionaire scenarios to you. And if you react like a poor person, you didn't match that energy. You got exposed, and you don't get to keep that energy that's coming your way, right? You don't fit in. That's why the fitness industry is like that, right? You build yourself up a certain way physically to fit into that industry, the fitness industry. You try to fit in by being like someone else, like Ian Gary, trying to be like Conor McGregor, but you ain't about that. You never became that character truly in your heart. Then when it gets real, you won't match that energy. This is why I say when trash talking goes wrong. These videos are journals for me. And I had a conversation with somebody who says that in my bio, it says that, I guide or, inspire you to, let's say, on your journey or whatnot, right? Something that's pretty cliche that a lot of people say, like, if you're interested in this work, it's I don't know, I forgot what I used along the lines of, my intention is to guide you and inspire you on your journey and whatnot. And I also said I'm not a teacher, and how this is kind of contradictory. I love these type of questions, you know what I'm saying? And these things, because if you look at the word inspire, and then guiding and teaching, you know what I'm saying? It could be looked at in a myriad of different ways. Like if you're watching my channel, right? I'm kind of showing you my way. You get what I'm saying? And if you look at the Tao, it's the way, right? But if I'm going to show you a path that leads to many different paths, it seems kind of chaotic, right? In my opinion, this is why you have different channels. If my way of you listening to my information doesn't resonate with you, you can always go to another channel, right? But it should be a channel showing you the way. You get what I'm saying? Where if I have a demonstration of, like, let's say, how to weld a pipe, to a catalytic converter on a car, there's different ways to do it. If I show you my way, right, then you'll most likely be inspired and guided to follow that way. But if there's other channels that'll show you a different way, then that's showing you their way. And it doesn't matter what way, you're still going to have your way. You know what I'm saying? You're always going to be doing it your way. You just picked up some information from my channel, but you're going to still have your way. It is not directly identical to it being my way. You know what I'm saying? So it's always going to be your way. Right? So I'm showing you my way here. It's not going to lead to a myriad of different paths. It'll lead to your path because you're going to have the way based on what you heard here from my way. It's not to say you're in my way. You're not going to be in my way. I'm on my track. I'm on my line. You get what I'm saying? And you'll be on your path, in your track, on your line. That person's on the right track. He conducts himself based on his mental training in society. Conductor of the train. How do you train your body? How do you mentally train yourself? Right? So in other words, when you hear somebody and it resonates with you, you may get it from different people, right? You may get different ideas from different people, but you're not on their path. You're on your path. It led to your way. You're always going to be on your way. You're not on my way, right? You won't cross paths with me, and I won't cross paths with you. We all riding this on our own train, conducting our own train here. We're all having an experience, but there's people who want to live vicariously through others. You know what I'm saying? There's why certain people will do vlogs and shit, because they're not living their life. You're living their life. Yeah, like people who do vlogs, you notice how a lot of people will just watch them, and like a person may do hours and hours of vlogging, and then you're just watching their channel rather than, it's like you're living their life rather than you living your own life. That's why I bought this example, because it's like it doesn't matter what you picked up from me as far as information or anybody else. You should still have your own way of doing things. And don't, because you're going to have expectations, and it's like you either gave your power away or you're just, it's like you're not going to have your own experience. So the whole, vlogging and everything is the reason why I bought this example. A lot of people can't wait to know what they're doing tomorrow. If they're, let's say they're living in nature and how they're surviving and whatnot. And you're curious to know what's going to happen tomorrow, or like this. That's how it is with reality shows. That's why they're so addictive. Instead, get up and do your own thing, and live your life, because you're just paying attention to the shit that they're doing. That's a way of you being on their path rather than you being on your own path and just grabbing ideas from somebody. And we're all spirit guides to each other. This is why they say, a spirit guide, right? Well, everybody's a spirit guide because we're all spiritual beings, and we're all looking at versions and extensions of ourselves. So I guide my child, and I guide everyone around me, and they guide me in return. But I'm not teaching you anything, because at the end of the day, every time that you think you're being taught something, the reason it resonates with you, it could be one or two things. You can have a realization that, oh shit, I learned something, or is this something I already know? And be real. And this is how you'll find the ones that you really need at that moment. Even if it appears to be a bad scenario where they happen to humble you in a way, look at that as a opportunity for growth. Because either way, favorable or unfavorable, it's always showing you something. And that's why I feel this way toward the information I'm hearing right now. You could ponder on that and sit with that with yourself. But I'm also going to talk about in the next video on spiritual development and the myriad of different ways you can even look at that. Spiritual development, But in a nutshell for this video, everything's a tool, right? If you don't know how to use a tool, don't use that tool because you'll end up hurting yourself. So for example, a professional construction worker could pick up a power tool and use it efficiently. If a person who doesn't know how to use a power tool picks up a power tool, they might end up breaking their arm or dismembering themselves to some extent. So fit in and know from your heart that you are that character, because everything you're going to be expressing from that space is the energy you're going to be putting out. Look at Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? This is why I use this guy as an example. This guy is a specialist, okay? And this is where I'm going to close this video off, and it's probably the most important point here I'm going to make. Khabib Nurmagomedov is a Sambo chain wrestler, right? He specializes in that one department. And what's funny is that he went up against the best fighters. He went up against strikers. He went up against brawlers. He went up against other wrestlers. And guess what? Everybody knew what his strategy is. Yet, Khabib never had to adjust to anybody else's style. He went in there and utilized the exact same style on everybody and broke them equally at his will. So remember how I said that trash talking is a tool. If you're really about it, you can do the trash talking to anybody and it wouldn't matter. You'll even have people favoring you just because it came out authentic and because it's real. But if you ain't about that, other people will pick up on it, right? On top of that, there'll be holes in your game. And on top of that, you should never take anything personal. See, that whole buildup is basically an act between two people. You know, like if you're both there, you're under contract, the interest is to make money. So you build up and hype the fight. You trash talk to each other, but the crossing boundary part is where it can actually turn on you, because in the interest of you trying to hurt the other, you end up hurting yourself because you are doing it to yourself to some extent. You know, this is why I said, even like when you horse plane, when whatever it is you're doing, if you're playing, don't take it serious. If not, don't engage in that. So I'm sure these fighters, when they're trash talking, the majority of them know that they're just trash talking. Sometimes it gets real heated. But notice that it doesn't matter how heated it gets. At the end of the fight, they always hug it out and there's no bad blood. The fight is over. They left it all in the octagon. They took all that trash talking animosity on each other in the fight. But if that's not able to be accomplished even after the fight, that's why they call it bad sportsmanship. That's bad blood. That's negativity to some extent, in a way that can have negative karmic effects. That's why street fights, you know, it's bad blood, you know. But there's a difference between like life itself. We fulfill a social contract with each other here. Love is the answer in all kinds of ways. But if you really know yourself, you'll know exactly how you're supposed to treat others. You're going to know. That'll be exposed, right? So if Khabib wouldn't have been 101% of the specialist he is in that department, somebody would have exposed him to some extent and actually been able to beat him. But the fact is that he's 101% solidified in that grappling department so much that it doesn't matter what fancy shit you put in front of him. He's going to dismantle it. And why he's considered a professional, balanced mixed martial artist is because even through the adversity of the trash talking, which we can call the evil side of the force, he withstand with discipline and stood his ground and didn't let Conor McGregor get in his head. In fact, it fueled him to the point where it made Conor McGregor more pressure on him, and he felt that energy not only in the trash talking department, but he also felt it in the octagon, right? He felt it in the octagon. So there's a lot of variables that could go and play here. Know yourself. That's why they say know thyself. When you know yourself, you know what to do. You know what tools to use, and who to use it against. But don't forget, against is also a word that I don't even know if I covered it here, but against, right? If you look at even when you're hearing the word antichrist, anti means against Christ. But when you have the word against, you're also leaning on that other individual. You know what I'm saying? You can lean on me. And that person leaning on you depends on your support. So if you really pay attention to this part here, when it comes down to the support part of things, both fighters even building the fight up in the trash talking department are literally leaning against each other and supporting each other, even though they're facing each other. They're still supporting each other because they're building up the fight. And if they go in there and perform, they may have the fight of the night, which I think I did mention that here. They may even get a bonus. The company rewards you for your efforts, right? It's like you're putting on a show. If it's fake wrestling, they depend on you to execute your mic skills and execute your moves in the ring and put on a good show. This makes the company happy, right? Can be looked at in many different ways. Are you going against somebody? Like you're versing that individual? Because you can see me versus you, right? We're going to be dance partners. And it's one verse that we're going to be doing. We're going to be dancing together. So that's why when there's good chemistry, you're going to have a good fight, right? Even though you were both trying to take each other's head off, you may even get a $50,000 bonus from the company because you both had a good dance. You both put on a good fight, right? It wasn't a boring fight. If you guys are trash talking to each other, to some extent, and you're engaging with it because you're building up the fight to where you're both going to gain a much bigger profit out of it. Even though it's real, right? It's still in your mind to know that there's no bad blood there, right? So you didn't cross boundaries, right? You didn't go off the script. Same thing with WWE. You got scripted lines and you got scripted moves. If you go off script, that could work very much against you, right? That could work very much against you because the company won't like what you do. But at that risk could come big rewards. It may work in your favor where the crowd actually liked it. Like CM Punk went off script, went off and did his own fucking thing most of the time. And it ended up building him to be the biggest star on the planet in WWE or in the world of fake wrestling, right? It brought a lot of heat to him backstage, but look where he's at now. So with great risks come great rewards, right? So if there's losses though, the key is to get it back together because life seeks to express itself to and through you. You pick up the pieces if you're a broken individual. This is the beauty part about being human. Angels are not meant to fall. You're not meant to be a fallen angel, right? And demons are not meant to rise from the spot they're in, right? But humans can fall and get back up again, right? And this is very, very wise. I heard from somebody and it makes a lot of sense, And when you really think about it, right? If you come off script during the trash talk in a press conference in the UFC, which is what Colby Covington did, he came off script, right? And coming off script affected him because the crowd turned on him. But if he decided to play that evil villain role, you're not supposed to care what the fucking crowd thinks of you. It affected him because he kept going like this. He kept going like this because he wanted to hear the crowd. But in actuality, man, you should be feeding off the boos or the cheers, whatever it may be. The good guy depends on cheers. You should be depending on the boos to fuel you. Either way, it's still energy and it's still a reaction right? But if you can't handle that reaction because it's not conducive to what you are, then it's not real. That's why the chemistry was imbalanced. If you're really a villain and you're really the bad guy, the booze are supposed to fuel you. That's why I always said, if you're going to be evil or bad, play that role to the fullest. There's no in between. In between is just what the spectators are. There's no, all there is just a energy drain. That's all there is if you're a spectator, because you're engaging in energy, polarizing to a side, plus you're paying money with, and you're paying with interest because you're interested in the sport. So your attention is the biggest currency on the planet. The spectators are the batteries for the organization. They're the batteries basically for even entertaining the polarities. Black or white or positive or negative. They're just in the middle. The colors are being used to fuel the black or white. If you're going to go onto one opposite end of the spectrum, play that side real well, but know who you are. Don't get lost in the lights and don't get lost in darkness where you can't find the light. I mean, these are just different perspectives and different ways of looking at shit. If you're going to be a balanced mixed martial artist or a balanced light being or person on this planet, is knowing the art of mental warfare. The mind is all, the universe is mental, and your performance toward what you're trying to do. Because if you're going to be the type of trash talker that puts all his efforts toward just getting all his energy out toward trash talking only, it's no different than somebody, trying to manifest something in their life, and all they're doing is talking about it, and releasing all that energy before it even manifests. And what it does, it ends up crystallizing, and you end up eating the energy before you manifested it. That's why silence, there's a lot of power in silence too. And press conferences could be like that. You could be a real big trash talker. You could be more the quiet one. And it's again, what are you though? Not everybody should be the same. You play your role correctly. Like Khabib wasn't a big trash talker. He did what he had to do, but he did it in the octagon, and this is how he built his fame. So that's all I got for this video. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike, and we will talk soon.